morning, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday to all across the Delaware Valley. Man, is it not a great day today? Phil's day game, and the Phils are just hot. Oh, my. You want to talk about sizzling. The Fighting Phillies. This is the Anthony Gargano Show. We're presented by TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Check out TrueMark.com/PHLY or stop into your local branch to learn more about the credit union difference at TrueMark Financial today. So let's get into this discussion. Yesterday, what another day. So they were facing Berrios, right? Jose Berrios, who's a really good pitcher for the Blue Jays. In fact, he came into the game with a 1.44 ERA, best in the majors. All right? I mean, you're talking about, he faced a lot of those AL teams, had a lot of success, just locked down, having a really good year. So, look on paper and you go, well, Berrios versus Christopher Sanchez. And I think we'll check later on with the brain, but I think the Phillies were a pick-em or close to a, some places might even have the Blue Jays as a favorite. Well, Phillies make quick work of Berrios. I mean, they just unleash hell on him. 8 runs, 7 hits, 3 2/3 innings. They chase him. All right? In fact, his ERA jumped a full run after yesterday. And, of course, it all gets started with who else? Bryce Harper, a Bryce bomb, 4 grand slam, all right, a bash. I mean, you just see it. Like, he just makes you pay. And he's starting to heat up. He's had a great week. And how about Clemens? What a great story. I had him in spring training last year. We sat down for a while. Great dude, right? He came from the Astros. His father's, of course, the great Roger Clemens. And, what a great story. What a game he had yesterday. Home run early, triple, all right, knocked in 4 runs. So they're rolling when the bench starts to contribute in that big way. Sanchez, I mean, does this rotation, do they have a flaw? My God. 7 innings, just a run on 6 hits, no real threat. 5 strikeouts, economical, right? 94 pitches. I mean, what a workman-like, boom, they're at you. They're just playing such great baseball. You got to forgive me. They're 26-11, and it have you starting to think about the best teams in Phillies history, and are we watching the best team in Phillies history? And having seen them all, the ones in contention at least, I think yes, I do. I think that this is, going into the year, I said 100 wins. And people were like, well, it's a little much. I really thought that this team didn't have a great weakness. Now, I thought the bullpen would be better. So they're 26-11. They've won 7 in a row, 11 straight at home, 18 of 21 overall, and we're not in June, right? Like, June is when they really start to play ball. I mean, 26-11. So let's think about this for a second. The teams that in Phillies history that would be in conversation for the best ever. So 2011 was the 4 aces, right? That's when you had Halladay, Lee, Hamels, right, Oswalt, and Joe Blanton as the rotation. The lineup was you still had Utley, Howard, Jimmy, right? So you still had those mainstays. But we'll get into that. That was 2011. They won 102 games. That was the franchise record. Now, in 76 and 77, they won 101 games both seasons. So they had 101 victories in both 76 and 77. In 2010, that was the year they lost to the Giants. 97 wins. In 93, 97 wins. Of course, last year, 90 wins. And then the year before, and then in 1980, it was 91 wins. So these are the best teams in Phillies history. Let's focus in on 2011. So 2011 was probably the best team of the run. 08 was a lot like what happened 2 years ago when the Phils go on that run. 08, they had made the playoffs the year before and lost to Colorado. They go and they get hot in September, and they make this run, right? They win the division, and you know the story of 08. But 08, it was interesting because your rotation was not, it was good. You had Hamels, who was terrific. You had like the veteran Jamie Moyer, right? You had Brett Myers. You had those kinds of guys, right? So you looked at it, and it was a good team, but it wasn't a great team. 2011 was a great team. I gave it a rotation. And also in 08, you had a great bullpen. Lidge, again, was ridiculous, right? Madsen was coming to his own as a setup guy. So you had a really good, strong pen. But 2011, when you're coming out with the horses, and they were horses. Hamels was your 3. Doc was your 1. Lee was your 2. Hamels, Oswalt, Blanton. All right? That was your rotation. Ridiculous. Now, their lineup, now let's compare this, right? Because the rotation now is great. It may not be all-timers, right? Like you may not see Doc Halladay, but, Wheeler is certainly, of the whole crew, I would put him second behind Halladay. I would put Wheeler above Hamels, and I would put Wheeler above Lee. And then you got Nola and Sanchez and Ranger, right? So, right off the bat, you may not be the 4 aces, but you're looking good 1, 2, 3, especially the way Ranger's dealing. So then your lineup. You got Chooch behind the plate, Peace at first. Remember, that was vintage Peace. That was his the end of his run. 33 home runs, 116 RBI. Chase at second, and interestingly, he had a down year that year. He only hit 268, 11 homers, 44 ribbies for Chase that year. Jimmy at short, Polanco at third, and then your outfield, Ibanez, Victorino, and Hunter Pence. And Hunter Pence he was never the guy. Remember, he then goes to the Giants, and when the Giants have their World Series runs, he suddenly becomes Mr. October. But here, he was terrible. We all knew that they needed a bat at some point in 2011. Trade deadline, they gave Hunter Pence, and we're all thinking like it was a great signing. It was not. And so you look at that effort. So I look at this team, right? So JT behind the plate. JT, as much as I love Chooch, JT's better stick, better defensive catcher, and that's a lot because Chooch was incredible, but JT is probably the best arm behind the plate in all of Major League Baseball. So you got to go JT. You got Bryce and Ryan Howard. So at worst, it's a push, right? Stott and Utley. So you're going to go Chase there. Turner and Jimmy. Now, you might go slight edge to Jimmy, but at that point, and the way Turner could be, it could be a lot closer. Third, Bohm and Polanco. You got to go Bohm over Polanco, where Bohm is, and how he's improved his glove and everything else. And in the outfield, all right, let's go now because of the DH, it's different, right? But let's just put Schwarber, Marsh, Castellanos versus Ibanez, Victorino, and Pence, and you're going to take Schwarber, Marsh, and Castellanos in the outfield. So when you're looking at this team, we're probably looking at the best team in Phillies history. Now, 26-11 speaks for itself. And just the way they're just trucking teams. Like, they're just coming out. And I don't know about you guys, but when you're watching them, they almost feel unbeatable. They have that air of they're so good that they have that air of unbeatability. I remember that in '83 with the Sixers. Like, you just kind of watch them, and they were just so superior to teams. And I get this feeling. Now, again, just because they're like this now doesn't mean anything in October, because we know how the roles reverse and things change. And, case in point is the Braves, right? Because Atlanta was just playing, just like the Phillies are right now, last year, rolling through teams, trucking teams, and we all know what happened. So baseball's different in that you could have great dominance during the regular season, but the playoffs, who knows? But if you're just looking at this team in relation to the rest, the Phillies history, I gotta go to the squad. I gotta go today over 2011. It's close because of the aces, but the way the top of the rotation, really the depth, right? The depth of this rotate. Turnbull's pitching well, right? You saw Taijuan Walker pitch well, Sanchez. So they're getting, it's early and it's just May, but they're getting a lot of contribution. So it's to me, it's fascinating. A lot of fun. This is a team that's good. And that's popping off. Brought to you by ALLCITY, the soda that's good for you. Yeah, soda. We love soda. It tastes great, right? But ALLCITY's good for you. So check it out. Buy some at your nearest Wawa. Good morning, JP.
Buenos dias,
John
cuz.
Zapata.
Oh, man. I'm Phillied up here today. I'm excited. Listen, one thing that I've heard a lot, I always like to get the consensus from the fan base. There's certain part of the fan base that likes to bring up the level of competition that they've had. But the fact of the matter is, you're a professional baseball team. You take care of what you have in front of them. And, cuz, we played some solid pitching. You mentioned Barrios last night. Dude had the lowest ERA. We tattooed that man. And let's take it to the other side. Obviously, the bats. But we've known the bats over the past couple of years. This pitching staff has been super impressive. As I look at a kid like Christopher Sanchez, and when I see him, I look at Ranger Suarez and kind of the trajectory he's on. You saw the way he controlled. You saw the way how he controlled. I'm going there.
Nah, like Ranger.
Well, not there yet, but we're heading there.
Rangers, I think we've had this argument over the last couple of days about Ranger and regression, and Charlie O'Connor from our All Flyers show has been bringing that up. Ranger, I believe. I mean, Sanchez is what he is. I mean, I think he'll give you a couple good outings, and but Ranger's actually a very good. I think
I think where I go is because some of the off-speed stuff. So you saw yesterday him throwing like the 80-mile-per-hour changeup, and then he hit you with that like 90-mile-per-hour. And the velocity was up yesterday. We'll wait to see. But this pitching staff has been really impressive because obviously you mentioned the aces from 2010, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. We're comparing those late 2010 or late 2000 teams.
Yeah, 2011 they had the aces. That was Ruben. So we had Ruben tomorrow on the other day, and Rube's white whale was Halliday. Right? He wanted Zoc in the worst way.
Oh, yeah.
So much so that, they were trying to work the budget. They had Cliff Lee. Remember, they traded for Cliff Lee in 2009, right? But then they had a chance to get Doc, right? So they had to let Cliff Lee, they had to trade Cliff Lee to Seattle, Philippe Aumont, Tyson Gillies, I think his name was. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is they have the chance to, then they get Lee back as a free agent.
That's right.
2011. Mm-hmm. They're the four aces. Like, that was probably one of the best rotations in the history of baseball.
That's right.
Like, going back to the early A's and Orioles of the 70s, like that, Mets, like that rotation was an all-timer. Obviously, that rotation is better than this rotation. But I'll take this lineup every day of the week.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, the rotation's still really good. but the bats are just really, really, really good. And I even like you just look. Buster brought up a good point yesterday.
Yeah, we had Buster Olney on yesterday.
So he brought up the
ESPN
fact
baseball.
he was talking about the dugout vibe and how hot it is, and you just hear it from fans talking about it as well. But even like a guy like Cody Clemens stepping up in a big way, getting 4 RBIs, you're getting bench pieces going up to the bat or even in the field and making some big plays, and that's that dugout vibe. That's super contagious because everyone feels that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting how close, and Buster talked about it, and you talk to people that are in and out of that clubhouse, and it'll tell you how tight knit they are.
Yeah,
which is really, really a cool thing, man.
You talk about the cliques. There's no cliques in there. Everyone is just one whole unit. And like the Trey Turner injury, obviously you would think like maybe a little bit of a slight back there for this team, but no. Here comes Bryson Stott or here comes Edmundo Sosa, and they just keep the ball rolling. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it's something that, and I'm going to run this by because I think it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Something that Buster talked about was how this group goes out of its way to include everyone, right? Young players get called up or bench guys or guys that come in. They go out of their way to include everybody.
Absolutely.
So I think that that's more part of this generation. I'll call it your generation, right? I think that's one of the great positives of this generation is that it's way more inclusive. Like, I think back to the 93 Phillies, right? 93 Phillies won 97 games, right? And we know the great story of the 93 Phillies, right? Obviously, Dalton and Dykstra and, Inky and you name it, right? Just go through the whole list. Schilling. But here's the deal. That team, Crucker, was Macho Row. That was the thing. They called it Macho Row. But it was a negative, too, because that clubhouse was not one. Now, there was some wild, and Kruk was one of those guys that, he loved everybody, and, like, everybody loved him, and he was – but there was a lot of division.
Yeah.
Schilling, right? Like, there were guys, Dave Hollins. It was not an all-for-one inclusive atmosphere like this clubhouse is. And I think that's generation.
Yeah.
I think in 1993, because I'm of that generation, right? 1993, I'm sitting there and I'm in my early 20s and I'm going, you have this feeling, right? Like you are the Macho Row thing was real. And ego and that macho thing was like omnipresent. Mm-hmm. And it was a competitive, like you were competitive to almost a detriment sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we're within your own team. Like it's good. A healthy competition is great. Like you want to be the best on your team. But the inclusive nature of this group kind of speaks to that, and I think it's generational.
Well, it's a long season. It's 162 plus games when you're talking about the playoffs as well. So it's important, to keep especially like those bench pieces, that morale high. I love seeing Christian Pache, man, barely sees the field, barely sees the at-bats. He's the first one you're fist bumping after making a big play. Yeah. And that's pretty much what you're talking about, that compassion. Real quick, you're talking about the 93 team, because I've watched so many YouTube highlights on that 93 team. So after that World Series, did you think that they would be back the following year and maybe going a little bit of just like a playoff run for the next couple of seasons?
Of course. I mean, we had high expectations in 94, high expectations. But that was the year of the strike.
Yeah.
That was the year, they didn't get off to a great start, but that was the year of the strike, just ended everything. And there was a pall that was over that entire season. So I was covering, I had just gotten a job, my first big job with the New York Post.
There you go.
And I was covering baseball. I was covering the Mets. So I was doing a lot of baseball stuff. And I covered that strike. And the last game was August 15th, 16th, something like that. Uh-huh. And it was like the middle of August, the last day. And the Phillies were playing the Mets. So I was home, right? And the players... So the team gets transportation back and forth to the stadium, right? And so the players, the Mets didn't get their players any transportation back to Shea Stadium where they parked their cars.
No, they didn't.
So the player rep, I think it was John Franco at the time, who's a lefty reliever, got a bus. So I said, listen, can I ride the bus with you guys? Because you're riding into the unknown, right? Like, and he's like, yeah, come back, right? So I'm like, it's a good story. So my car's home here in Philly. So I ride back to New York on the bus, and I took like a $300 cab ride back to Philly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it was a good story because
Absolutely.
I'm on the bus with those guys.
Yeah.
And we were, they had cases of beer, right? Coolers of beer. And I remember we were like driving over the Jersey Turnpike, drinking and not knowing the future of the sport because the sport was shutting down. And those guys, everybody thought like it would be a week they'd be playing. There's no way they would cancel the World Series.
Sounds like COVID.
And that
you
was the year they
happen.
canceled the World. Yes, it was. So I'm on the team with I'm on that bus with all the Mets, drinking beers, and they're just on the way back to their parking lot at Shea Stadium.
Crap. Well, let me get you juiced up because I got juiced up looking at the following schedule here. So for the next month, we got some fun baseball. So we obviously have a series with the Marlins, we have the series with the Mets, Nats, and then on May 21st, we have a 3-game set with the reigning World Series champs. And that is going to be a fun series, and then we'll see there. We'll see how they stack up with the reigning World Series champs there. Should be fun early
Actually,
series.
You know what's funny? I was already looking at the schedule. We didn't talk about this piece of it. I was looking at the schedule earlier. Do you know they play July 29th, 30th, and 31st?
Is it those guys in Atlanta?
The Yankees.
The Yankees?
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Love playing the Yankees.
Yeah, because I've been getting deluged from the New York people.
Oh, I bet you have.
After the, I have a lot of friends in New York.
Yeah.
So after the Knicks thing, I've been getting deluged. And so, I start pumping up Phillies, right? And thumping my chest. And they're like, well, the Yankees are back, right? So Yankees, Phils here, end of July.
I can't
That's
wait.
a showdown. So we're going to look forward to it. There's a couple other ones I can't wait for, right? Phillies and Orioles, man.
Yeah.
I want to go. I want to go there. That's in Baltimore.
Really good ballpark. I always wanted to go to.
Yeah.
Good setup.
We got to give a trip. We got to call Vince from True Fan Travel.
get
Get
us
a
down
bus. Go down to Baltimore. Get nuts.
Baseball and crab cakes. I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That'd be fun.
Absolutely fun.
We all silly like the mayor.